In an effort to get ahead of the inevitable brain-dead responses to this video, with most of them probably calling me a cultist, would a cultist give an I don't care rating to both Rebel Moons? Exactly. I keep the same energy with everyone, so keep your tribalism bullshit out of my comments section and shut the f*** up. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
In a strange bit of news that I did not expect to see this weekend, apparently a 300 prequel series is in the works at WB, with Zack Snyder in talks to direct.
God! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm! What's the procedure, everyone?
Now I know what some of you may be thinking, why would Zack Snyder ever want to work with WB again? Some of you may even be thinking, why would WB want to work with Zack Snyder again? If you haven't been paying attention. Well, the answer to both questions is quite simple, actually. If WB and Zack Snyder can find a way to work together again, it will be because that's what's best for business. The truth is that a working relationship between both parties would be beneficial to both parties. And you might ask, why do I say that? Well, it's simple, actually. In Zack Snyder's case, he gets to expand upon one of his absolute best movies. Something that he would not be able to do without WB's consent in any other situation.
Shh, you wanna get sued?
The other reason I think this is good for Zack is because I haven't been all that impressed with his relationship with Netflix. In my opinion, sometimes too much creative freedom isn't necessarily a good thing, but you also have to find a way to not get in the way of the creative process as well. And I still believe that Netflix at least partially sabotaged Zack Snyder's vision of Rebel Moon by making him put out PG-13 versions of the films first. It especially doesn't make sense when you consider that it's being released on a streaming service where ratings and runtimes should not matter. To me, Netflix and WB are kind of one and the same in that aspect, and you would be a fool to suggest otherwise. Now, I don't know if the correct response to that is to go back to the scene of the crime at WB and risk further meddling in your vision, but here's what I do know. On the very rare occasion that WB hasn't meddled in the creative process and has allowed creatives to do their job, that's typically when they produce their best product, with things like the Dark Knight trilogy and yes, even Joker. Now, will that happen with the proposed 300 prequel series? That remains to be seen. But I will say that I hope this headline is accurate and that Zack Snyder is being brought back to direct only. To me, that's where he shines. Let someone else write the script and then let Zack bring it to life with his visuals. To me, I think that's the best case scenario when it comes to the possibilities for this series.
That makes sense.
And as bad as the studio system has been to Zack, I still think that he should try to be a part of it. Now, I know that this is a series and that it will most likely be premiering on Max, but if it's successful, it could lead to Zack one day returning to theaters with his projects, which is, I think, the right place for him. As far as how this is good for WB, let me count the ways. First, the obvious. Is there any other studio outside of Disney who is in more need of good publicity than WB? They have films flopping left and right, and they have the large hurdle of trying to appeal to a fractured fan base that they themselves have created. Now, I know that there are a lot of people out there who have a hate boner for Zack Snyder. I get it, but can you please put it to the side for a moment? Tape it to your leg or something.
Yeah, well, you better tuck that in. Gonna get that caught on a tripwire.
Because you would be an absolute dip to suggest that WB would not benefit from mending this relationship. Say what you will about Zack and his films, but the reality of the situation is his fans, more than any other vocal fan base on the internet, show up and show out when it counts most. And WB could use a little of that support by association that could inevitably help them repair their image. Give them a reason to be excited, rather than have them dwell on how you fumbled this relationship the first time. You are in desperate need of some goodwill, and if you're WB, correcting one of your biggest mistakes would help to do that. Plus, I know the conversation always revolves around Snyder versus Gunn and all that bullshit. But if you're WB, wouldn't it be smart to try to have both of them under your banner? Again, it makes sense from a business perspective, because you are able to now please both sides of this argument to a certain extent. Plus, if James Gunn's DCU doesn't work out, you have a backup plan in-house.
That's bait.
I have to be honest, I never thought I'd see the day where WB and Zack Snyder were willing to work together again. But if in fact he does end up coming back and he takes the job, it does show you a few things. First off, it shows you that Zack Snyder might not actually hold the same ill will towards the studio that some of his fans do. And that's to be expected. Fans tend to be a bit more emotional and vocal about these sort of things. But to me, this shows that Zack is a professional. Zack understands business, and Zack wants the freedom to tell stories in the way that he wants to tell them in some capacity. If WB is once again the place where he can do that, and he can get a nice paycheck in the process, I say let it play out.
I'd buy that for $1.
Just to be clear, my feelings toward WB have not changed, and they will not change, barring something drastic like a complete buyout. But I do like a majority of Zack Snyder's work. I do not like all of it, but 300, as I said, is one of his best. And if I remember correctly, 300 is actually the very first Blu-ray I ever bought. And I absolutely wore that out when I bought it. And as much as a prequel isn't really the most intriguing thing to me at the moment, I would still be interested to see what Zack could bring to this world that he created absolute magic in the first time around. So I'm definitely down for this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you're down for it or not. Unless, of course, you resort to the same tribalism bullshit, then you deserve to be Sparta-kicked right down a deep dark hole.
I should have known you were a Snyder cultist. How can you support this man after he turned Superman into a depressed emo murderer? And don't get me started on what he did with Batman and all that Martha nonsense. Martha just so happens to be my ex-wife's name. So I can't relate to hearing that name and not wanting to fight. Zack Snyder is a garbage filmmaker who ruined my childhood, and I hate everything he does.
Y'all be cool. Right on.